I call to order March 14th, 2023. It's 5:42.
Okay.
The Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'll do the roll call. Okay. Itzel, not present. Kate de la O. Triana. Alexandra Romero. Not present. Natalie Moreno.
Here.
Emma Sanchez.
Here.
Yaniel.
Here.
Michael.
Here.
Neha. Jada Perez. Mia Castillo. Who? Okay. Andrea Cordova.
Here.
Ashley Flores.
Here.
John Roman Galo. Not present. Ashley Cardona. Not present. David Perez. Genesis Briggs.
Here.
Haley Gonzalez. Not present. Okay. You have a quorum, so we're gonna pass it back to the chair.
Karen. My name. Sorry. Alexander Moreno.
Oh, Alexandra Moreno, present.
Thank you.
Okay. You have a quorum, so we were on public comments. We don't.
All right. Roll call. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the status update on the LYC project from the subcommittee.
Hello. I was thinking, before anything else, could we add Yanni into the subcommittee as well? Because he's been helping me converse throughout it.
Okay.
All right. And as for now, I've done research on what we should be doing. There's a few things we could do. A lot of it would be really constricting on time. I haven't had time to talk with
With Isa or Noraida?
Noraida because she was busy the week we had scheduled it and we never followed up through it. But besides that, I was gonna present you guys with a few options, specifically Brits and you, Karen. Would you want to do something more educational, or Yanni had brought up with me that we do some small business interviews?
Yeah, he had mentioned. I mean, that's for you all to kind of.
Well, the reason I was asking is more on production time and length kind of issue. It's just like how long are we going to be presenting it for specifically, and
I think at the most you should do like 20 minutes,
20 minutes.
so we can show it in other places or to a group.
Okay, so it's not just going to be contained to that specific first show.
We can probably show it at different schools or show it, maybe share it with our staff. What else? Maybe we can get a group together. I think we talked about showing it at one of the schools at least. Do a presentation there.
Okay. I was just kind of trying to understand a little bit more of what we were wanting.
And that's a bit more doable than longer.
Yeah, to me this is definitely a bit of an easier breather for us. So.
Was there some people that you were already considering to include, or some small businesses?
Yes, I was gonna go back to the public library to see if we could get a bit more of an in-depth conversation with the historian there. She
Was
was
Renee?
a great talk
Yeah.
for all of us.
Okay. Are we still on track though to have something by?
Yeah, I've already talked with a few individuals that I thought would be good to include within the videos. I met with a band, a local band. It was kind of weird, their presence, but it was nice. They introduced me more to a little bit of an artsy young community within Laredo. So I think that might be a little bit nice to exemplify that.
Do you guys have any questions for them regarding their status or what to add to the video?
Any ideas are really great. If you have anything that really you feel could be put in.
Do you know how you're gonna divide it? Like, do you know how you're gonna go from, if you're gonna do like artists in Laredo, then to small businesses?
I was gonna make it a one-centered focus
Okay.
type of thing. It's 20 minutes as we just,
Yeah.
It's not gonna be too long to be messing about if we want to make it informational for people.
Okay. Do you already have a list of businesses that you wanted to include?
I was gonna have Yanni hit that up. Just 'cause he
Yes.
seems
So,
to-
right now I don't have a list, but what I think we can do is create a roadmap and
Okay.
then send it to the group chat and also to you, Karen and Ritz, for certification. And once we have that roadmap down, it'd just be a matter of getting footage.
Okay.
I'll
And are
put
you
in
gonna
the
need
group
help
chat.
getting the footage from our?
I would just need to know like directly who to ask for when we set up the
Okay.
video production.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I have a couple contacts of like different owners of coffee shops, like Los Olvidados. I know the owners. I know Gloria's owners. Jenny, I can get in contact with her. Pass your contact info so that way, if there are people you're interested or are interested in being in the video, for sure. Yeah. Anything else on that item?
I also know, like, if you guys need, like, a camera, like, my teacher over there at Magnet School, he works with audio and visual, and they have, like, cameras, like, we can borrow. I just have to ask him, and I think I already asked him, and he's like, yeah, just tell me when you need them, and, like, all that stuff, and I'll, help out with that.
Yeah, that's great. Anything that you can help like within your expertise is great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, I know some people showed up, so Genesis, do you wanna say their names for the record? I think Itzel.
Itzel was here. Who else just showed up? Oh. Name. Mia.
Okay, 5:45, Mia. And Jada, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put all of you at 5:45.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Moving on to the next item, presentation by the city on current projects and work.
Yes, so I know some of you guys were here, but we have Joe Nebb, our city manager, in his third week here with us.
I'm in
And-
my fourth now.
Fourth week, yes, fourth.
I've been here a while.
And we have Councilmember Melissa Cigarroa. So they're both here. You guys wanted to hear from the different council members, the different city officials. So they're your first ones. We wanted to give you guys like each like 5-10 minutes to kind of talk about one, like what you're doing as a council member, the work you're doing in your district, and your role and what you see for the city, in your first 4 weeks.
Yeah. Happy to do that, but I'll defer to council member.
So my name is Melissa Cigarroa. I do represent District 3, which is a lot of the neighborhoods off of 359 and the Heights area and some of the neighborhoods between Clark to 359 going down that section. So Cheyenne and then to the right Ponderosa Hills, if you recognize those neighborhood names. It's a new district, so that's why I tend to try to describe it because it's only been in existence since redistricting occurred after the census. I was elected in November with the 2022 election, and I was elected to, my platform was to have oversight over the water improvement that we need, the water infrastructure, so that's pipes, and we've had issues with problems with the pipes, and then also because of the way they're laid out in the grid. I don't know if you remember the boil water notices that occurred. It's a TCEQ oversight. Texas Commission on Environmental Quality was overseeing some of that. That's an issue with development and how those pipes are laid. And then in addition to that, with water infrastructure is the age of our pipes. A lot of cities in the state of Texas have this problem, that their pipes are very old. I can tell you that underneath my house, there's a pipe that's made out of barro, which is clay. That's really old, yes. And it had to be replaced. So on the scale of the city, you're talking about miles and miles and miles of pipe. It ends up being very expensive. And so I explained to residents that I was very interested in making sure that the contracts to replace it were contracts that were done with good companies and that we had oversight and a plan to see it through. That I can tell you, the city is pretty much taken care of. I thought that as a council member I would have a more dramatic role in making sure that all of this happened, understanding I have zero experience in utilities and how they run, but kind of on that oversight level. Turns out we have a city department that functions to do that and is doing a pretty good job. So my role during the budgeting process will be making sure that the priorities that the utilities department puts forward that those priorities are met. And they usually have realistic plans on how to divide up that work. If you're looking at what is estimated to be a $500 million project to replace all the water pipe that needs to be replaced because of its age, it's something that a city of our size cannot undertake in 1 year. It'll be done over several years. It's already started, and this is just to make sure that the plan continues to roll out and is funded to the levels that we can afford it and that makes sense for us. Another item that I spoke about during my time as a candidate was seeing through a binational river conservation project along the river, and I don't know if you've heard about that. It's a green space that essentially asks the city to look towards the river and appreciate it for the amenity that I think it should be, to develop areas that will attract people to the riverside instead of looking at it as our backyard, which again occurs in many Texas cities that they haven't always appreciated their natural resources. To look at developing it in a way that is not necessarily building a building. You don't build on the riverside, right? But creating green space that attracts people to come and enjoy the river's beauty, and whether that's fishing or kayaking or just birding is also very popular. Developing that ecotourism aspect for our city. That's something I was very passionate about and an advocate for before I joined council, and now that I'm in council, I actually have the ability to be a louder voice for that and to present that idea not only to constituents, but also we went to Washington DC recently and spoke to different departments where funding is available. So speaking to the Department of Interior about what those plans are and how as a city we're moving forward on that project by making investments that I get to be a part of voting for, but also how do we leverage those funds to ask for federal dollars. What state, we were at the City of Austin also advocating for city projects. Okay, what state dollars are available to improve, have better quality of life projects here in the city? And as a council member, I get to participate in that, which is very cool. I enjoy that part. I come from this, the reason why I joined council, or one of the reasons why, as an advocate, you know, you're promoting these ideas. My big one, this just a couple years past, and it's coming back to the forefront, is being against a border wall. For me, that was very important that we preserve the lands along our river's edge for future generations. A border wall means turning over land, the title of that land, city lands, to the federal government at the time, and now you'll hear that the state of Texas is trying to use eminent domain to also take city lands along the river's edge to build a very destructive, environmentally destructive, non-secure, in my opinion, barrier that's not going to promote the overall security of our city. And I think also wastes a lot of tax control of those lands forever. It's in perpetuity. So as an advocate, I was very passionate about it and participated collaboratively with a lot of other people to be against this wall, try to raise the profile of that and show people in our city how they, if they wanted to join the effort, what they could do positively to impact that. And in 2020, that was voting in the election. And in 2022, that's going to mean calling our local officials, our state representatives, highlighting the fact that the state of Texas usually supports landowner rights. It's a big idea in the state of Texas that if you're a landowner, you control what happens on your land, and this idea that the state of Texas wants to come in and take away the right of landowners to control what happens on their land by seizing it. It resonates with this independent streak that we have in the state of Texas. We're hoping to generate some talking points among people and empower them to call the state and say, we don't want this to occur in our community. We want our community to decide what security means. We want it to be science-based, evidence-based, and the state of Texas is providing none of that currently. But being a council member allows you to raise these issues that you're very passionate about when they affect your city in a bigger way. So I have a bigger megaphone now to do it. I try to do that responsibly. I don't mean to say that it's whatever you think should be out there that has no connection to what's good for the city. Decisions that I make, and this is what I tried to present to my constituents when I was asking them to represent them, is I want decisions that I make and things that I advocate for to be evidence-based and to be in the best interest of the city, of course. And so being on city council allows me to do that, which I'm very appreciative of. The other thing I wanted to do as a city council member when I was talking and trying to, again, generate support for my campaign was to communicate with different neighborhoods. And what I'm planning to do, I haven't done it yet, it takes you a while to kind of get your footing in this role. There's so many things that the city does, as I'm sure you're finding out, right, with it being introduced to all the different departments. So a lot of residents don't understand what their city does, all the services that are provided, all the things that go into making the decisions to provide those services, and how they can reach constituents, homeowners at a local level. And I'm setting up town hall meetings in every neighborhood, and that's my pledge, right? To go to every small neighborhood, find a meeting place, and then tell them what services are available, and really listen to see what the residents, what services they feel are lacking, what amenities the city could perhaps provide, what their view is of how they think the city can work better for them, and then see how I can be a bridge and either find the city department that can help them with that, or open up a discussion with how something can be created to meet their needs. Because a city functions to serve its population. I mean, it runs on city taxpayer dollars, and as such, everybody has a voice. And that doesn't, you just have to be a resident. It doesn't have to do with citizenship, it doesn't have to do with, if you're part of the city, then you should have a voice in what services can be provided to you. Everything within reason, of course. But it's always a conversation, right? And people should have more information so that they know how to access their city, their seats of power, because it should reflect what they want. So, in a nutshell.
Do you guys have any questions for her?
About the National Park, have you seen any of the evidence to support its ecological impact?
So what are the plans?
Oh, more so, what are its presumed, what are its presumed effects on the environment down here? Sorry.
So right now, the Rio Grande is one of the 10 most distressed rivers in the entire world, according to the World Wildlife Fund. We have a lot of invasive species that are on the banks, and that complicates not only the water quality, or water quantity, I should say, but also security. So Carrizo cane came across with the Spanish settlers to build thatch for the huts and the construction that they used to do back then. Well, Carrizo cane is incredibly difficult to get rid of, and the structure of it lives deep in the soil, and it lives right on the riverbanks. It's incredibly thirsty. It takes about 30 gallons of water a day per plant, and if you've seen our riverside, there is thousands of plants of carrizo along the riverbank. The National River Conservation Project plan is to mitigate that, if you encourage native, and it's invasive, so it crowds out native species. So if you create a plan to plant native species to encourage their development, you will crowd out the invasives. Native plants tend to take in less water because they are, in our climate, if you're a native plant, you need less water to survive just because of the conditions of this climate. So it is helpful to preserve water quantity in the river if we have less invasives, and the conservation project intends to do that. We used to have trees along our banks that were all cut down, I think, to make all of Fort McIntosh, to build those buildings. Reforestation is part of the plan because you want shade, you want cover, and native trees can do that with less water. Right now, the trees that grow along the banks are something that we call salt cedar. It turns out they're not really a cedar, it's some other technical name, but we know it is salt cedar. They take about 200 gallons of water a day. And again, if we're trying to preserve the habitat of the river because it's our only source of drinking water, we have to mitigate the invasives and the damage that they do. So the conservation project is meant to conserve the resource of the river and the habitat. You need to have a healthy ecosystem along the banks of the river in order to preserve the river. When we were walking in neighborhoods and trying to explain the destruction of a border wall right there at the river's edge and to preserve the ecosystem of the habitat, people would say, you know what, this river's been here for 1,000 years, so I'm not gonna worry about it, it'll be here for 1,000 more. In our lifetime, we have seen rivers die. You know, if you take out too much water, if you are not preserving the habitat along the banks, those banks will erode into the water and cause sedimentation and pollution. And again, it's our only source of drinking water. It's a problem, and rivers can die. So if we're going to have a sustainable community here, the ecosystem along the banks needs to be a concern. And one of the ways we can do that is to create this project to mitigate the invasives along the riverbank. So that's part of what the Binational River Conservation Project will do. It's also to create a green space. It's a gathering space. I mean, you're investing in creating an ecologically more beautiful place that should attract people. And if you do that, then above the riverside, where you can build, right, out of the floodplain, then we should see development of local businesses who are catering to those needs of all the people who are gathered there. And so it can be also economic revitalization, which is a positive for the project as well.
Okay, so an overall positive view. That's nice.
It happens also to be a project that our sister city, Nuevo Laredo, is doing as well. So we have about 500 city acres along the banks that are being under consideration. It's 6.2 river miles from Chacuan Creek all the way up to Paso del Indio Trail, which is where the Laredo Water Museum is.
Is part of that not also a flood zone?
It is. It is a flood zone. But that's where the mitigation of invasives will be very important, because they're in the floodplain and their roots are able to reach the water that's in the river, and that's why they're growing like crazy. But creating a green space and making it resilient for even a flood event is doable. I mean, it happens in many other communities as well. And so you're creating this green space on one side, and then we also, our partners in Nuevo Laredo are doing the same along their riverbank. In total, it's about 1,000 acres, which would be unique. You won't see something like that any other place in the world, to have such a large green space. And the security that we want to layer in is an alternative to something very destructive and a physical barrier that doesn't make any sense, and in our opinion sends off the wrong message to our neighbors and our trading partners in Mexico, right? If we can create a safe space with this park, with this green space, then we improve security by bringing more people and kind of shining a light and having all the cockroaches disappear. That's the idea. But also creating an economic stimulator, because when you give people alternatives to participating in activities, illegal activities, subversive activities, it helps. You get more people on your side, less crime, and what we hope to be less crime and a more secure border.
Would the public space be the only security detail within it?
No, actually, Border Patrol is part of this, what we call it a technical working group that's working on the design plans for the park, and security measures will be layered in, so technology, virtual wall, cameras, lighting in certain places. They say sensors, I'm not quite sure what the sensors mean, but ways to increase the eyes that are on this area, this public area.
So it would just be surveillance? Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Part of it, part of the plan. And then you're also opening line of sight. So Border Patrol is very, line of sight is important to their security measures. So, but right now what they do, they're just, in some areas they choose just to mow down everything, and that creates a destabilized riverbank and can cause a lot of erosion.
So if you're promoting native species and natives don't grow as tall and they're not as thick, they just can't because of our climate, then the native species stabilizes the bank, but also gives Border Patrol that line of sight, which is important for their security.
What's up?
We're passing the floor to you.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna pass my business card around. It's got my email address on there, and so after we get done with the conversation, if you have anything else you wanna hit me up on and ask, and please just reach out and, I mean, he's gonna pass one at a time. All right, thank you. All right, my name's Joe Neff, and I'm Laredo City Manager for the last 3 weeks and a day. So, and let me talk a little bit about city management in general, right? I'll talk a little bit about my past, and then we'll come into how Laredo operates, and we'll walk all the way through, and then hopefully I won't give you much time for questions at the end, right? Okay. No, it's all right. So the city manager position is essentially a conduit between the elected officials at the top and the services on the organizational chart, right? So my job as city manager is to translate the vision and the directives of the elected officials of the city, and we translate it through, and then I turn it into action through all of the departments, no matter all the services that the city provides. That's what a city manager does. I've worked in communities for over 25 years. I've worked in 3 communities in Indiana. My smallest community was a town of 1,200 people. Now, does everybody know the population of Laredo?
100,000.
260,000? 260,000, right at plus or minus. So there's 260,000 people in the city of Laredo. I worked for a town of 1,200 people in that population. We had 5 people on staff that did the job. My police department was a police department of 1. He was the police chief. So really small communities, right? And they go all the way up to larger cities than Laredo. And so that was my first approach into city management 25 years ago. Then I progressively worked through 2 other communities that were a little bit larger in Indiana. And then I worked for a town of about 12,000 people in South Dakota. And then I spent the last 6 years right before Laredo working in Roswell, New Mexico. And hopefully everybody knows where Roswell, New Mexico is. It's universally, it's right, it's where the crash happened. I'm just telling you. All right, but it is. And so now I'm here in Laredo. So talked a little bit about the structure. So the elected officials are elected by the people, and they come together and they're elected. So in Laredo, there are 8 districts in Laredo, and there's 1 elected official for each one of those 8 districts, and then they elect an at-large mayor, which means everybody in the city elect that mayor. And so that's the governing body of the city, for the city council of Laredo. And then they take all of that energy, all that vision, all those policies, and it flows through the city manager. And so my job is to kind of take all of that and then turn it into the action underneath. We have about 39 departments within the city of Laredo. We have almost 3,000 people working for the city. So that's how many employees we have in those 39 different departments that we do. And I know you're learning about what all the departments are. You probably know more about how many departments or what all the departments are than I do. But you know, it goes everything from public safety, police, fire, emergency dispatch. So anytime a 911 call comes through, it comes through our group, and we direct the traffic out for that. We do the parks and recreation, street repairs. We do, I was trying to think of a couple other general fund services that I could list out there, but city administration, the library, I think we heard the library mentioned as well too. So you get out of the general fund and you move into what's called the enterprise funds. These are the water and sewer. So the water, we take the water out of the Rio Grande, and that's why the river's important to us. That's where our water comes from, is out of the river, and then we treat it, we clean it up, we send it out to all the homes, serve the homes, and then when you're done with it in the homes, we actually take it back. And that's where it goes to the wastewater treatment plant. And then we clean it up again and we put it back into the streams. So it's circle of life kind of process. So we do water, sewer, airport. We have an airport, and so that falls underneath the city's responsibility as well too. So out of the airport, we have all the commercial service that comes and goes. So every time you fly out, right? And we work with the TSA, we work with the FAA out there in order to provide that safe travel for that. Outside of that, we also have businesses out there that help us as well too. So that we have all the little smaller airline businesses out there. They may be fixing planes, they may be doing a lot of other work, and that helps create the jobs that we have as well too. The arena is owned by the city. The stadium is owned by the city, and so we actually lease that out in order to have somebody manage those for those services that are provided in each one of them. So we cover the whole gamut of what type of services that the city provides. The health department is a big one as well too. That's something new for me as well too, because not every city will assist with the health department the way Laredo does. And I think that's a really good benefit for the city with what they're doing, because all city governments, their primary purpose is health and safety of the community they are serving. So it has everything to do with just health and safety. So even the parks, putting in a basketball court, putting in a tennis court and everything, that's health and safety because it's quality of life as well too. And council member talked about that as well too, is that there's this quality of life that goes in there. We're responsible for a lot of different things. We partner with business in order to make the business happen. We don't actually build the businesses, make them happen, but we serve as that catalyst for that. The neighborhoods are our primary purpose, and so hopefully every business, every Chick-fil-A, every IHOP, every restaurant that comes out there should be doing something for the community as well too. We just make sure that it all happens that way. We do building inspections. We do some of the harder parts of the businesses like code enforcement. So we want to have people maintain their property to a certain level because it raises property values. Two, again, it's a health and safety thing. So if there are too many abandoned vehicles on the property or a lot of trash or garbage, it attracts other vermin and things that could interrupt the health and safety of the city. So everything we do ties right back to that, whether it be for the mind or the body. Let me see. I'm trying to think of anything else that might be interesting with that. Otherwise, I'll just take questions. I run out of things to say. That's not normal for me. But we govern all the way through that. So human resources, probably, we all look for hiring the best, and trying to make sure that we train them in order to do all these jobs that are out there. So it's a good career choice. If you guys don't go elsewhere, come see me. But it's a really rewarding job. I think in my interview and everything, somebody had asked me at one point in time, what's going to be my legacy within this service? And it's that I made a difference in somebody else's life. And I think that's something that's very important to a lot of people is that, and it may be as simple as I made that dog quit barking that has been bothering Mrs. Smith down the road. We have the ability to help make sure that we just go ask the dog. That's how we get the dog to quit barking. I'm kidding. But we walk through that process because it's all about living together in a society and doing it nicely and kindly. And then of course we got all our public safety, and we take all the bad stuff off if we can get it done as well too. And so, but those are all the pieces of city management and everything that we try to do. So I look at myself as kind of a translator. And so I take all that vision and everything and I try to translate it into something that'll happen that's nice for everybody. So really quick shotgun approach on city government. So are there any questions that I can try to answer?
Well, city, obviously, like managing a city is not a one-man job. And obviously, like standards have to change. I went to go look at the health department, I had mentioned earlier. And while I was there, I got to do an inspection on the stripes. And like the inspection was really subpar. So how does like your job and your position help like regulate standards and improve standards when it comes to the safety of the city?
And I mentioned about code enforcement. So yeah, the health department does that as well too. They go out and make sure that everybody that enters that property, right, it's safe to use. You know, there's a couple different ways. I'm going to talk a little bit, probably from just my viewpoint more than anything else. We have the laws, we have the regulations. Let's just start with that as well too. So we establish what those requirements are. Now, federal government, state government, local government, right? That's kind of that pecking order is how it goes. So we try to take the federal laws, they get broken down in the state laws, and then they get broken down into local laws and how we govern through that. So there's the regulatory side. So we want to make sure that it meets all those conditions all the way up and down. Our inspectors go out and verify that. The way I try to train for code enforcement or anybody that goes out and does an inspection on that, you treat that the individual or that business as they did not know they made a mistake or they didn't know it was wrong. And you treat it that way. And so essentially, I guess the best way to say that is that we start with the educational process. We start by teaching them, saying, are you aware that you're in violation of whatever it is? The police officers do that to you for, if they stop you for speeding or anything else anyway. You know, it's not to bother you, it's to make sure that you're safe. And so the idea is that, are you aware that you were speeding, right? Same thing with the health care or the health in the inspections of a business or the food, whatever the food preparation. So I always start with the process of an educational. Are you aware that this is a problem? And then hopefully you have that interaction, a good interaction with them that, no, I wasn't aware. Yes, I can fix it. And then, okay, well, how quickly can you get it done? Because there's also, how long has it been there? You know, we don't know. We just know that it needs to be fixed going forward. So it's really important to know that deadline or that timeline when they can get it taken care of. So worst case scenario is that if we don't get that good relationship, then we go to essentially shutting down that business or shutting down that until it's taken care of. And then we also have a legal team with us as well too. So, you know, if it goes to that level, then it may have to go to court, may have to be proven a lot of different ways. And so those are the processes that we use. But always start on the educational side and say, are you aware that this needs to be corrected?
Cool.
Yeah. You guys are being real nice to me. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So.
Oh, I said you got a tour, right? You got a tour of everything, like all the stations and everything. I heard you got a tour. How was the tour?
The tour was great. Yeah.
Yeah, like you got to see like all the places now.
I tell you, it's like I take it all in and then I try to unpack it at night, you know, because it's like, all right. And I haven't been, I've been to quite a few stations. This is my second time here. So hopefully you've gotten a tour of this building or anything, or you're going to?
I got the tour already. I can't hear
Okay, because really they do a great job. And it's really nice. It's I always kid the fire department because they have some of the most expensive toys. All right. And now the cool thing about a fire truck, and I will tell you, is that it will still look brand new when it can no longer be used for the service because of the way they care for it. It's really good to see that. But the nature of public safety and everything as well too is that it has to work when it has to work, and if it doesn't, somebody is going to get hurt. And so the whole idea. So you'll enjoy the tour and everything. Big building and all that. It's done right, and so. But yeah, I'm touring as much as I can. I'm trying to learn. The bridges are cool. Having that's where a lot of our funding comes from. We live off of property tax, so everybody that owns property in town, they pay something into us. Sales tax, which is our grocery receipts. Every time you buy a good, we get a little bit of that as well too. And then of course I mentioned the enterprise funds, and those are user fee driven. And so they have to operate on independently on their own usually. So I'm happy to tour more, but it's just taking a little bit of time, and it's a big place.
When did you first hear about Laredo? Like, how did you discover that we even existed?
We need a city manager. You know, before there was an interest with the job, that was it. I only know a little bit about Texas and all of the area. I heard a lot, again, the news continuously runs the border, immigration, all of those things. Mm-hmm. And you know what, and I was talking to, Mayor and I were talking to a group from Germany today, and what's really cool about Laredo is that our impact with the border is so much different than even El Paso or anybody else. And I think it's that relationship that we all have. And so it's really cool to see that. So truly, I knew about Laredo from the movies. Let's put it that way, right? Streets of Laredo, all those Westerns, right? And didn't really know it until I started interviewing for this job. And I'll tell you that you guys, you're in a very blessed area, a very nice area that the people care about each other, and that is something that is really good. So, but yeah.
I have a question for you.
Okay, you're not allowed one.
Okay, so you said you learned about Laredo when you interviewed. So has your perception of when you first kind of Googled Laredo and heard about us changed to, you know, now actually being here and like deep diving into who Laredo is?
No. Let me tell you, I guess, and I talked a little bit about my history with the city government in the first place. The city's challenges, the biggest challenge the city has is focusing on anything to get it done. Because we don't have enough money to take care of everything, and Councilmember Seguroa talked about fixing infrastructure that's 75 years old, 80. You know, the clay pipe hasn't been used for a long time, just so you know. But we are trying to fix situations that were not considered a priority in the past as well. And we're trying to move the city forward, and Laredo is growing very quickly. I mean, I think you all see that as well too, right? I mean, it'll be a lot different when you get older as well too, when you see exactly how this thing expands out. Keeping up with that pace is very difficult because there's only so much money to go around in order to fix that. Take into that, then there's only so many people to fix it. What I've learned from the start to now is that I've learned that the people are more caring, because you can't see that in a spreadsheet, right? I got to get used to hugging, just so you know, because that's kind of a thing here. It doesn't, and I can shake hands with the best of them, but the extra hug I got to get used to, and but that relationship is very important, and I think that's something that you can't find on a spreadsheet, you can't find on a Google map. And the other thing is what I was alluding to was it doesn't talk about the focus that's needed to get things done. It talks about a lot of the challenges, and I'll tell you that on the news, in the newspapers and everything, there's a tendency to focus on the bad, not the good. The good gets like third billing. It gets like on the third page, fourth page, and everything else. And so it's the bad news that takes the headline usually. And if we could change that around a little bit, it would be better, because I like to focus on the positive, not the negative. I like to eliminate the negative. But that's what I've learned more of, is that it hasn't changed, it only probably for the better. I mentioned in a meeting that I will defend the city, I will defend its people to the best of my ability, because I believe that Laredo deserves it. And I don't know what one person can do, but I guess it all starts with one, right? So, yeah. So did that answer your question, or did I tap dance around it? 'Cause I can tap dance and juggle with the best of them. So. But you have my card. My email address is on there. Contact me if I can answer any questions, or if I can help in any way. That's what I do. And I commend you for being in this room and spending the time learning about all of this as well too. You know, I was married, and we were probably I was probably 10 years married and everything before I ever learned where the water came from to come out of my tap, right? And then what happened to it after it left. I knew when it didn't work, but it took a long time. So you guys have that big jump ahead of you, and understanding what this world is and how it operates. So if I can ever be of service, let me know. So, all right?
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I had one question for you that I wasn't able to get to. We were talking about this like at one of our first meetings, how like federal elections get a lot of the glory, right? And you get like a lot of the pizzazz when it comes to the media. So how did, like for you as a local official that got elected locally, like what were the challenges when it came to actually getting your voice out there, right? So that local community, because it's, you don't have the funding to do that. And once you were able to meet those challenges, like what was the best way to get your voice out there in this community?
Try to attend every public event that you can attend. Also social media, and I am from a generation that did not really participate in all of that and have a lot of challenges. So campaigns often find consultants to help them. That was the one person I did look for, somebody to help me with social media, because I didn't know I had a Facebook page. I had a Facebook account. I didn't even have a page. And then I developed a whole new Facebook profile because I thought I needed that. And then I didn't realize that the page is separate from the profile, from the regular account. There were several challenges in just trying to get all of that to function. And I have an Instagram account only because my daughter told me how to do it. So couldn't branch out any more than that. So social media was a big thing.
Canvassing.
I'm sorry?
Canvassing. Yeah.
Canvassing. So then it's going to the neighborhoods. It's knocking on doors, and I did that a lot. And there are, so candidates do a couple of things. One, they can get a big team of people to go out with them, and it's challenging to do that. Or you go out, I'd go with one other person sometimes. And if you're just doing it every day, then you can get to meet people. And you understand too that you're knocking on doors, you try to find a time to knock on doors when people are home. Don't always find them at home. And neighborhoods, they're big neighborhoods. And if you're going to have an interaction with somebody that's not more than 30 seconds, right? There's no way to reach everybody. So you're just trying to do it as much as you can consistently, day after day after day. To get your word out. And if you're in the neighborhood and you can reach a significant number of people, they're going to tell their neighbors, right? And whether they agree with you or not, at the very least, they'll know that you're in there. And then I also used yard signs. And really that was just, if somebody, I would have to ask, and not everybody wanted to do it, not everybody participates in that way, which is fine. But if I could do that, then the other people in the neighborhood would know that I was there. That I had spoken to their neighbor. And again, whether they agreed with me or not, at least they knew I'm making the effort to try to figure out what are the concerns in that neighborhood. Where do they want to see change? What are the issues that are important to them? And it's a word of mouth type of thing. Other candidates also, you can get call lists and you can call people. I think that's harder to do. I'm sensitive to that because I don't know how many spam calls you all get, but when you get older and you have insurance, right, and you have credit cards, oh my God, you're on everybody's list and they're always calling you, so I find it less useful.
I have 6 new auto warranty I don't know why, but
Exactly. So, old-fashioned ways, yes. At the end of the camp, so I had decided I would not do billboards. It's something that a lot of people do. And at the end, my husband panicked, and so he bought a couple of billboard signs. I'm like, okay. But I thought, we had this plan. Anyway, if that one got a little blown up. But that's another way that people choose to get their
Cool.
name recognition out there.
You guys are good?
Yeah, do you think that experience that you've had to bring yourself here, has it been good for you as a person?
Oh, yeah. You mean being a council member?
Well, yeah, and all the steps that led to you being here.
I think so. The other thing I would mention, and part of that is the debates that were held, because you have issues that you need to speak about, and you need to be able to speak about them coherently. Evidence is important, so you have to research a lot of these issues. It's not like I knew everything about the water infrastructure issue. I had to ask people about that and find information about that. Other forums would ask, well, what are your priorities? What are the things you want to do? What do you think about a particular issue? It wasn't just the debates, but the Kiwanis Club, Rotary, organizations that are social organizations that say, I have a forum for you to be in front of people. Would you like to attend? And you say yes. And then sometimes they give you issues and topics, and sometimes they're like, it's a free-for-all. But it forces you to think about what you want and what your vision is for the city, and where you see yourself impacting that. And I think those are all good things to be able to explain yourself to people so that they can have confidence in you, that you are going to work in collaboration with the city and for the benefit of the city. So yes, I do think it's helped me grow as a person, to understand things a little bit more. And everyone I think that runs for office, at least in my experience, is motivated by wanting to do good by the city, by wanting to make the city a better place to live. In my case, and I'm not sure if this is, you can tell me if this is true of just mothers, but I have 5 kids, and so that matters to me. I want my children to come back, to be able to come back, to choose to come back to a city where they feel like they can raise their families and contribute in their city, right? It's important to me. I think that motivates many, many people who run for office.
it's not an easy job. And I always congratulate them when they win, and I also provide them their condolences, because they're going to make 51% of the people happy or sad, right? I mean, because there's 2 sides on every issue, and so they have to look through all that information. And I think every elected official that I've worked with, I've always said, you have to vote your conscience, you have to vote your heart, you have to be able to put your head on the pillow at the end. And so if you can do that, it doesn't matter all the noise and the clutter that's out there if you've done your best to do that. And it's really hard. It's an elected official is strong because of their voice. That's how they make their difference, is that they talk about the things. They speak about whether it's from the heart or whether it's from the education or the research and everything. So they put themselves out there. It's a really hard thing to do, to put yourself out there. And then it's really nice when it all works together, because we have some really interesting debates in the council meetings. They go pretty hard at each other because they are on opposite sides of an issue. The idea, though, is that, and this is where the democracy comes into it, with 8 of them up there, the vote comes and we take the majority vote. And then we go on to the next decision. And it's really interesting on a hard night, because you'll see the political decision-making come together differently on every issue, because it's based upon their head and their heart. And so, really hard thing to do. I will say that it's up to your generation to do some things. You know that most everybody gets elected into office, and we actually operate, only 10% of the population vote. So only 10% of 260,000 people, you know, are voting on putting people to take care of the community as a whole. That number should be a lot higher. It really should be. We would make stronger decisions for that. And so do what you can for advocacy and everything else for that. But that's where it kind of goes, is that it's really hard to sit up there. I'll ask as well too, is that when you're sitting in the audience watching everything, the decisions come a lot easier. You sit behind that desk for whatever reason, that desk actually causes a difference in your thought process, don't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens from one side to the other. And so you just think about things a lot harder and a lot, because you're not looking at just taking care of your family, you're looking at taking care of your family. And so it makes it a lot different, so.
I said that I would, in my decisions, they would be evidence-based. That's what I pledged, that every decision I made, I would have a basis for it and share it, you know, that I would try to be transparent in that way. So I hope I'm doing that when I'm up there. I certainly try to explain myself when I'm up there in my thought process, so that constituents can understand how I come to a decision, and also feel that if they want to contribute to it, I hope they're reaching out and contacting me, or they feel that they can. Some people do, so that they can either help me make a decision or try to influence it, which is fine, or at least know why I made the decision, because it's their right to know.
Yeah. Real good.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
You're welcome
thank
to
you.
stay, but thank you.
Holler if you need anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, can I get a photo with you guys?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes.
I was like, are we missing something?
I know the feeling.
Where would be a good spot? Where do you?
We can take a picture downstairs by the big fire engine and then come back up, or you want to do it in here? We can do it against the screens.
They did eat. Take a walk, it might be.
Walk, okay, you guys. Yeah.
We'll come back up and we'll explain.
That's good.
And you? I'm so deep.
Oh, that's true. You guys didn't adjourn your meeting, right?
Not yet.
Okay. You should adjourn and then go.
Thank you.
So Victor can also fit.
I got a meeting that I gotta go edit.
Oh, yeah. I was like, are you missing
Oh, in a second. Ooh.
So before you go on the tour, is there any other business that you want to discuss? No?
Sure, there's an idea about these items. If you can say that for another time.
I didn't need to say because it's getting late, but what's it called? When do you guys want to have your next meeting? I think you should do it early April, so we can
Oh.
get
When we're on Easter break,
during Easter break?
Like it would be.
don't we get like 3 days, 4 days? You get Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday.
Yeah, but like then again, a
But
lot of events fall on those days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
People have church.
I
So
think I may be out of town.
when is the first week of April?
So I'm thinking April 5th, which is the first week.
Yeah, I'm going Andy. I have a
April,
handy.
April 5th?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Does that work for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. April 5th. That way we can get a better status too on the. Okay. And then the other order, just very vaguely, you're gonna get an email from me. Councilmember Segarra presented a volunteer opportunity for an Easter youth event on April 1st. So, hopefully we can get a larger group of you guys out to go in youth council, as a youth council. And if we do get a big group, I'll work on also getting shirts to kind of.
Can we volunteer like how? I guess not like an email.
Yes, I'm gonna send you an email. I don't know the details, so just be on the lookout for that. So
April 5th, you said?
April, it should be April 1st, I believe. a
April
Saturday.
1st for the event. April 5th for
And
me.
April 5th
Okay.
for the meeting, yes. What Contest, okay. Yes, does anyone want a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay. Meeting is adjourned at 6:46.
Okay, thank you. Now you can do your